Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton. And I got to tell you, I have a guy on today as a guest I believe is going to change the way you communicate, right? I think he's going to help you rethink some things you're saying and maybe some roadblocks that are coming up. I've had the pleasure of seeing Jamie speak a couple times, and we just connected recently at another event. So I want to welcome Jamie Miller to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers for having me, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure, man. So, we talk, I see you on stage and I watch you deal with communication and the way you get people to rethink what they're saying. And, a lot of times people have no idea what they're going to say next. They just blurt it out and hope that it works. How did you get to that, Jamie? I don't know the story beforehand. How did you get to the stages and started sharing the way to the conscious communication?
Okay, so obviously there could be a long story with that. If I was to try and briefly summarize, I would just say I've been very disciplined in certain arenas of life. Used to be kicking a soccer ball, and I thought that was and I just did everything I could to get a scholarship to play soccer, as it's called over here, in the US. And then for 20 years of my life in sales after leaving college, Chris, all I was someone, I just paid attention to every interaction I ever had. And I always, it's kind of interesting. So I lost my dad, and that ended up being what I call the greatest gift that could ever happen for me. And I found the positive in just being like, Jamie, you won't be fulfilled. So I put a time clock on my life. I was 42 at the time. And I was like, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I won't be happy working on behalf of others. And I was like, where does Jamie Miller provide any value for any other human beings on this planet? And I'm like, I've been studying from speaking in front of rooms of people for 2 decades and interactions. And I was like, can I teach other people what I know? And then thankfully, 7 years later of doing that, Chris, I'm very honored, blessed that I get to grace stages with yourself and actually, and the hope would be during the podcast is like we get to something where it's like, what is something that someone could take away as one thing they didn't know or weren't thinking about? Mm-hmm. So they can be like, yeah, actually that makes a lot of sense. I'm doing that and I can see where doing this would help. And that's a very brief summary, Chris. It's just it's a lot of people, I think, confuse or overcomplicate things in life before they go about doing something. And I guess I'm very blessed that I seem to manage to have simplified my self-talk and my external talk to people.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right in. So obviously if that's what you study and you look into communication, you want to make sure people can communicate at a higher level. And in sales, why do we do that? Well, we want to convert at a higher level, right? We want to be different. If you go into a room today with salespeople in any industry, because I think what you do is not just mortgage and real estate based, just like what I do is not just mortgage and real estate based. I think there's a big scope of what we can do there. But if you stepped into a room today, do you have a couple things that you say, first of all, like let's diagnose what our challenges are, or how do you even start that conversation? Because you a lot of the same salespeople have the same issues, right?
Oh, I could rattle them off. I prove in front of a room that people aren't listening. All right. Just when I go, hey, I get better at my communication because I teach. Let's say I teach you something here today. And then I go, what should you all do to get better? And the whole room answers practice. Even though if they play this tape back, they'll see I said teach. All right. And I didn't invent that concept. A lot of people in the world understand when they teach something, they get better. So one thing is I prove in front of rooms of people, we're not listening as good as we can. We use negative connotations. There are people in sales who will say these words to someone. I'm not here to sell you something. And they don't even realize that when they say, I'm not here to sell you, that the other person's hearing, you're going to try and sell me something. The other principles, two more that I think that is done too much. We talk too much. All right. So humans, they want to tell everyone why they should do something. I teach let's extract value by asking good questions. And then the other way is how we answer questions. I'll give you an epiphany that I had in when I called it amateur Jamie days to learning is when someone would go, Jamie, what's the cost? All right. It's like a loan officer. And again, what I teach, you're right. It affects every industry. I'm just, I'm thankful to go different places the universe sends me. Loan officers get asked, for example, for those who watch this, what are the rates? Well, a loan officer will just tell someone these are the rates. They haven't extracted any value. Back in the day with me, it used to be, Jamie, what's the cost? And I used to feel compelled as amateur Jamie, well, this isn't a cost. This is an investment. A cost is going to Best Buy and buying something that depreciates for the next 5 years. An investment, you make an investment. And you know what I learned? That person never bought from me. Why? Because I'm teaching them the difference between cost and investment. I'm talking. So I tweaked it and I started learning, hold on a minute. You asked what's the cost? Yeah, absolutely. We'll get there. Just curious. Would you say there's a difference between a cost and an investment? Now the client's saying, yes, there is. And then I'm going, well, what would you say it is? And now they're telling me, Chris, and suddenly that person buys. Why? Because I got them to share with me. It's simplicity, but like loan officers, what are the rates? Here's what the rates are. The person doesn't know. Whereas if they knew to go, hold on a minute, there's a multiple choice question. Psychology. I'll share the rates real quick. Do you care just about the rates or do you also care about the caliber, of the loan officer you're going with? And then when the person answers caliber, it's then to know to elevate and evoke more emotion. So, what would be a characteristic you value in your loan officer, and then letting the client tell you. And I think it's that lack of knowledge on that kind of stuff, Chris, that thankfully I get to elevate.
So let's go deeper into that. Like well, first of all, I love the curiosity place. I ask questions from curious all the time. Like I DM and text potential clients and speaking opportunities all the time. And most of if you look through it, it's like, Chris, you're always asking, just curious. Would it make, like, one of my favorite things I like to do is say, just curious, Jamie, would it make sense for us to jump on another call soon? Right. I'm never the just following up, checking in guy. I'm never that guy.
Do your audience might appreciate this, and I think you will too. It gets me chuckling when you say to just curious, because I had this happen. I gave a talk at a real estate brokerage, and afterwards the team were going up to the guy and was like, hey, when Jamie talked about that gathering information, that was like life-changing. And all he said back, he goes, Jamie, he goes, I've been telling them to be curious for years, all right? And it takes you with a British accent to say gather information. And all of a sudden, the stars align. And the point, Chris, that comes up for me is, it's like when you give a friend advice and they don't listen to you, and then they go and hear it from someone else and they come back to you, I got the most amazing advice, Chris. So an extra lesson for people is, we all, no one invented anything. It's just conceptually how it's presented to us. I love the just curious, but the just curious means essentially you're the one asking questions. And I think that in communication is lost in sales. It's just not. People are taught whoever asks questions steers a conversation, but then we ask the worst questions of people that we really don't want the answer to.
Well, yeah, I tell people all the time, our salespeople today are asking questions that intentionally not get a no. Like they think a maybe is a win. Well, there's no like when I tell with my clients, I'm like, he goes, yeah, I had 3 people that said maybe they would do this. Okay, well, show me where maybe shows up on your W-2, because there's no maybe spot on there. There's yeses and nos, right? So like, I think when people understand that a lot of times it's our job to get to a no, because as a salesperson, we really don't, our job doesn't start until someone says no. Everybody said yes, Jamie, we'd have a kiosk in the lobby that would just, people would touch a button and go to work.
What if, I change the flavor of it a little bit, and nothing I teach makes me gospel, Chris, nothing. All right. What if we don't focus on the yes or the no? And go with me on this. Mm-hmm. If someone asks you a question where they're like, would I be crazy to be thinking this? Knowing full well that a no is the answer we're actually looking for when we ask that question. All right. If someone asked me the question, Jamie, would I be crazy to be thinking this? Here's what I would turn around back to them and say. And we've got to realize, depending on the caliber of the people we're looking to have in our life, But if someone
Yeah.
says, would I be crazy to do this? I would turn around and say, I would bet money that you've read the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. All right. Do you see where I'm going? Right. And now, because,
Yeah.
why? Because you're asking me a question that I already know what you're doing. It's like when someone uses the words feel, felt, found, Chris. Like, oh, I can see, Jamie, why you feel that way. Other people have felt the same way, and here's what they found. I'd say, I could see why you feel necessary to use those words. Other people have felt just as necessary. And what they found was, I said, well done on doing sales 101. You know, like you've learned, feel, felt, found. I guess where I'm going with this is this, and it's to leave an epiphany for people. Instead of asking the yes or no question, I like the psychology of multiple choice. So you don't just say, would I be crazy? Yes or no? Hey, would I be crazy, or would my feet be firmly on earth? All right, to be thinking this way. All right. Someone goes, oh, we're going to hold off. We think the market's going to crash. Amateur person, why do you think it's going to crash? Well, great. Ask someone, you don't even know what it's going to do, and you're the expert. You're asking someone a question that, like, my sister's nephew went to date a girl who went to a nail salon, and there was someone who was part-time mopping the floors and part-time said the market is going to do this based on asking that question. What if instead of going, the person goes, we're going to hold off. We think the market is going to rate. What if they knew multiple choice, not yes or no, and be like, hey, just humor me. Would you say you've got really, the worst taste in the world? Or would you say you've got pretty good taste when it comes to buying a home? And you start there, Chris, and then they're not, if they're in front of their wife, they're not exactly going to say, oh, I've got awful taste. You know what I mean? Like they're going to go, that's what I'm looking for when I bring on clients or when I'm teaching people is you want to stay away from headache clients. All right. So what I do is I let them answer good taste. Okay. So then I'll go maybe layer it. Well, so look, you're saying the market's going to do this and then it's going to do this and you're waiting for down here. Have you ever noticed the next up is always higher than the last one? And then they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, look, are you buying everything you shared me earlier share with me that you're looking to live in it for a while. So are you looking like to do flip this house stuff or are you looking to live in it for a while? And if you notice I'm just doing multiple choice all along. And then they go, we're looking to live in it for a while. I'm like, well, look, when the market goes down here and you've got good taste, is that going to give you more chance of getting the home you actually really want? Or is it actually going to give you less chance? And then I'll use my tonality to get the answers less. Okay, so what do you think we should be doing? And then they're going to go, I think we should keep looking. Hey, we can always refinance, right? I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. And so the whole premise is not yes or no. It's how do I steer this conversation towards a thought process where I get to say the words, I agree. Because if I can get to the ending and say the words, I agree, what I've basically done, as long as it's done with ethics, integrity, and good morals, is I've got to make it their idea to be sensible.
Yeah.
And that's just,
I love that.
So again, different flavor, didn't invent any of it, Chris. It's just my thought process. And I believe if you're trying to sell the boss of something, we want to make sure they're not immune to the sales strategy. In fact, if I was trying to sell you, Chris, on something, amateur person, hey, I'm not here to sell you something. You, Jamie, like you're here to sell. I'll be like, hey, Chris, just so you know, well done. You don't get where you've gotten without knowing what you're talking about. All right. So seriously, well done. We love praise. It's genuine. When I share, I loved what I learned from you in the first year at MortgageCon with the sneaker. Whether you can't help it, you like it. It's like, oh, like it's like an injection of like a dopamine. Do you know what I mean? Of like, we love praise. Dale Carnegie in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. We love praise more than we do money. All right. So we love praise. I give you praise. And then I say, instead of saying I'm not here to tell you, I'm going to be like, look, the reason I gave you the compliment genuinely is I'm here to win your business. Absolutely. 100%. And you being you, I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to know why I'm about to ask you a question. Can we do each other one favor? What's that? Can we just be genuine in our responses so we can both sleep? Now I've basically taken out all the resistance from stuff. If you get a lot of loan officers watching this, and I know you said we're free flow, which I love, and hopefully, are you enjoying? Do you think they'll enjoy this stuff?
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
If a loan officer wants a really decent realtor in their life, they're better off saying, well done on all your success. 100% I'm here to win your business. And then if they really want to elevate, be like, look, if you were me, would you be wanting to work with the best of the best? Then the realtor is going to be like, yeah, great. Now you've got permission. You've taken all the resistance out of the sale because you're telling them what you're there to do. And you've given yourself permission to ask any question you want on the planet as a result of who you're trying to sell or speak to. So, again.
No, I love the multiple choice aspect of it. And it keeps the conversation going, right? It keeps it going, right? And I think that the road to the sale or any of the basic things we've been taught. I mean, I started selling when I was 11 years old. I went to work for a company called Junior Salesman. I had a script, and I would go door to door into businesses, and I would sell boxes of candies and cookies. And I made 60 cents a box. They were $3 each. And I was making $100 to $150 a week at 11 years old. That's what I did. So like, and I learned at a young age the importance of a script. But I think what I learned the most was, which is crazy to think about, at 11, I think I was probably 12 or 13, my second or third year into doing this, when I realized the importance of, to go off script, you have to know a script, right? So I had this script, right, that was just like, here's these things you should say, why we're selling this and this and that. And then I got really good at reading people when I would go into a car dealership or I'd go into other places, and I could see why they didn't want to buy the candy or what it looked like. And I could go off script and do it. I'm curious what your thought is on, like, you know, when you go into sales, you were in sales for 20 plus years, you still are today, but like different type of sales. We're all taught scripts, right? I sold cars for a long time. So I was taught scripts on how to meet somebody and talk to them and do a walk around and all this stuff. How can Jamie Miller look at a script and say, okay, I'm going to rework some of this stuff and make it more unique, more that's going to be thought provoking as we work through it?
So basically, again, look, I never know how your audience is going to perceive what I'm about to share, Chris. All right. Mm-hmm. I'm not script. There's plenty of script people. All right. It's not about understanding a script. It's about meeting someone where they're at and going with a framework. So let's, instead of script, I'm looking at the building of rapport first. Why? Because people buy from people they feel the same as. So a script is, hi, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so. Click. Mm-hmm. All right. The framework of building rapport is basically, how do I get this person to feel like we're the same? So I'll give you an example of knocking on a door. All right. If I was knocking on someone's door today, as I knock on the door, I'm going to build a framework around building rapport. And I'm going to say, hey, mate, I don't know about you. All right. But never in a million years. All right. Did I ever think that at 48 years of age, I would be knocking on your door? I thought maybe I'll be a cowboy, an Indian or something. I never thought when I was in a classroom I'd be here. Yet I am fascinated with how many people seem to love me as a result of knocking on their door. What I did, the first part, I don't know about you, yet never in a million years did I think, all right, and like, were you thinking like you'd ever knock on someone's door, or were you thinking cowboy Indian? I'm subtly building rapport with the person in front of me, Chris, on that front. If I'm on a phone call with someone, there's no script. There's me. If I'm calling you, I'm going to first off build rapport around this, and people don't think about this. There's what's called mirroring. I teach extreme mirroring. I'm waiting for you to pick up the phone first. Hey, this is Chris. Right, watch this. It says Christopher on your screen. It says Jamie on mine. If someone phones me up and goes, hi, is James there? I'm like, psychologically, they're telling me, you don't know me very well and you're about to sell me something. If I call you Christopher, all right, isn't it saying, like, yeah, you don't know me very well, like you're trying to sell me something? So it's understanding the difference of, first off, I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to see, do you say, hi, this is Chris? Hey, this is Chris. Hello, Chris here. Because here's what I'm going to do. You say, hello, Chris here. I'm going to go, hello, Jamie here. It's a very subtle, subliminal building of rapport. It's not script. Yeah. All right. Because if you're a hi person, I say hello, I've made myself different from you. If someone doesn't answer the phone, I'm going to go, if someone calls me up, it's only happened one time in 7 years where someone did this and I gave them a bravo round of applause. Hi, I've got your name as James. What do you like to go by? I'm like, dude, well done. You've made it colder to warmer very fast. So Chris, it's first off building rapport. The next part, which I don't know if people picked up on, I use group psychology. I get fascinated. Every time I do this, people always, they're loving me. I'm now putting in their head that they're not a sucker for loving me, for knocking on their door, because I've told them this is what other neighbors have appreciated in the door knocking scenario, Chris. It's the same thing on the phone. Hey, I get fascinated. Every time I get on a phone call, people always want to meet. It's that subtle throwing out, this is the outcome that we're looking for. And then it's the evoking of the emotion and call to action. Hey, look, let's say I'm more than just a fancy accent in my case. There's no script. No script's going to be written to an office where everyone's going to read. Let's say I'm more than just a fancy accent. All right. It's not scripted, Chris. It's me being authentically me. Let's say I'm more than just a fancy accent and I can help in this arena. Would you at least see a benefit in meeting with me or in doing the next step? And it's the yes or no to that part, Chris. That is what we're looking as an outcome. So rather than be scripted, we want to be outcome driven based on building rapport, evoking emotion, and what I call a seamless call to action. And I don't know if I'll do justice this morning with it, but in a teaching moment, if you build rapport and you evoke the right emotion, the call to action is a lot easier.
Yep. No, I agree with you on that, on the call to action. I'm a big CTA guy. So let's talk about you and I were at the same event at Mortgage Con, which is a great event. I enjoy that a lot. It's fun event. It's not a stuffy office, stuffy corporate type of event. They do things differently. The guys are great. But we saw a lot of speakers speak over a 2-day period. And I don't know about you, but as someone who goes to events from time to time and pays, I felt like at some points it's like, okay, if I get pitched by one more person from stage, I'm just gonna like fall. Like I'm gonna be fed up. Like I felt like sometimes we go to these events and there's pitching stuff happening. When do you think you earn the right to pitch from stage?
Well, if you notice my talks, I don't do the QR code or anything of that nature, Chris. And, that was my third Mortgage Con, and I've got 3 other talks as a result of talking there. It's just I believe in going in the universe. You see people when they go into sales mode, and it says a lot in the psychology. I usually teach there's one word in sales we can't be, and that's desperate. Everything else goes. Mm-hmm. All right. So you get to humanize yourself, Chris. People will always remember the way you leave them feeling, Chris. All right. And so one of my things I teach speakers several things. All right. When they're going to speak on stage. One, you want to do a more what's deemed on the softer sides of a softer side of a close. It's okay to sell something as long as it's ethical and above board. I would say that you've got to sell the right thing though. If someone puts up their package and this is the pricing, Chris, of something, I don't believe that in the talk that you've done, the speaker has extracted enough value to actually go asking for that amount. So what I preach is you want to sell the next form of correspondence that's warmer. All right. And so I used to sell texting. Why? If someone texts me as a result of what I talk, Chris, I then get the opportunity to speak with them. It's one thing to be in front of 100. I actually would say the ideal size room is anywhere from 20 to 115 people is an ideal for a speaker to then get more business for themselves. And it's manageable to be able to get text messages to then reach out to have a warmer call. Once you get into the thousands, Chris, then administratively, you don't necessarily, I don't know about you, but I don't have the capacity to go doing the phone calls. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of events, there's lots of stuff that goes on. I mean, like when an event only gives half an hour to speakers, they're trying to provide value for the room. But then if speakers tell their life stories, that's 15 minutes of it, Chris, gone. So that's why I pride myself on being, here's what I look to do. And hopefully other speakers who are listening like it. It's how much clarity can I provide in half an hour and get the room to feel like, oh, I know this guy's got a lot more. And then I'm going to approach him about the lot more. Or will you come and speak at our conference that we're hosting? And then I look at that as the compliment. When you go to a restaurant you love, what's the compliment you give it? You go back to it or you tell other people about it. What's the compliment you can give a speaker? You get other speaking engagements as a result of that. And as you know, it's fun being on it. Well, I enjoy it. You seem like you enjoy it. Like
I enjoy it. Yeah, I do. Another question for you. I was very into your talk, of course, because I knew you were coming on the show. When you got up on stage, what I found was very interesting was you said, I'm not going to tell you about this or this or this or this, like the stage you spoke on or the people and stuff, but you showed the slides up there. What was the psychology behind that? I was like, wait a minute, you said you weren't going to tell me this, but I just saw that you spoke with Les Brown. Like, what does that mean? Like,
right.
I'm just curious where that comes from.
Okay. So it's all on purpose. Everything I do is conscious, Chris.
Yeah, of course it is. I knew there was a reason behind it.
So what's this? If I ask the room, do you have to know things about me or do you have faith in the organizer? I know that everyone in the room, if they're a good human being, they're going to say, I've got faith in the organizer. I just know it. All right. Some people might say, I have to know things. If they say I have to know things, I get to share a couple things. Does this give credibility to you all? If you were invited to do this, would that give you some credibility? They say yes. Great. If I say I don't need to share, technically I say I don't need to share means I'm sharing. Here's what's happening, Chris. There's some people in the room that might need to know that stuff. Do you know, because it's a room. But then I get to give the glorious lesson very quickly. That in terms of what I teach people, I didn't have to share that stuff, meaning when you go into your interactions, if you are sharing that stuff, you are oversharing and you're doing I'm going to cross my fingers, hope and pray. And what I teach in sales is too many people are being taught to tell value. Companies sell their salespeople. We do this benefit, this feature, this thing, tell the whole world. And I'm like, no, if you do the telling of value, you're not finding out what does this person value that you bring to the table. So Chris, it's multifaceted, but the first thing is it's me being a little bit cheeky because I'm like, I know I don't need to share this. I don't need to share that. Okay. But the right people in the room are like, okay, Jamie, you've got me. Like you don't get invited to speak on that stage or you don't get invited on UWM's partner perks. Do you know what I mean? Like being but the main premise is to be able to get to that first lesson to teach, because in my field, one of the most amateur plays people do is they talk themselves out of business and they don't start with, and then I don't know if you picked up on this and not everyone does, but the second question that comes out my mouth is, hey, before I start sharing with the room any communication, what benefits would any of you come up with to be better in communication? And for me, I teach people how to communicate. So from my standpoint, if I get one person in the room to say, I'll get more sales, all right, which always someone says, right, they can now connect the dots throughout the half an hour. Did they learn one thing that they didn't know before I got on board? And if they did, Chris, they're like, I attribute Jamie in my life teaches me more. It gets more sales. And that's me being very authentically upfront with people. But everyone who's listening into this, if they think by telling a person I've been doing this for 10 years or whatever it is, they're crossing their fingers. If they say, hey, does it give you a sense of confidence that I've been doing this for 15 years now? Now the person goes, yes, go, hey, why would you say so? And now the client is telling them stuff. That's the lesson, Chris, in that. But well done on picking up. Okay. Most people, when they're listening to me, they're not necessarily looking at the psychology of the breakdown. This is the only time I've ever shared this on a podcast, Chris. So maybe this would be a nice soundbite. Here's my presentation. It's building rapport. It's evoking emotion, and it's a call to action. What did I say? The framework of a conversation: build rapport, evoke emotion, call to action. I think one thing that speakers don't do enough of, Chris, is they don't pose questions of the room, and they talk at a room rather than with a room. And so there you go. That was a lot to share there. But.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, that's why I was like, oh, he's coming on right after me. Perfect. I can take some really good notes and have some questions for him when he comes on the show. But that was the first thing. I'm like, okay, I got to ask that when I get him on. I can't wait to have that conversation, at least ask that. The other thing was, one of the things about this last mortgage con that threw me off a little bit was there was no running clock. And I'm very especially when they tell you got 30 minutes. I've gone through my talk multiple times and tried to make sure I was where I was supposed to be. And that was challenging when that clock says 20 minutes and it just sits there. And then a little while later, it turns to 15. I'm like, okay, I don't know where I'm at. I was really.
Again, as a speaker, and again, do you get a lot of aspiring speakers who might listen into the podcast? Because most of the people say, a lot of people say, they're scared of public speaking, and I give advice on how to think around that. And it wouldn't be think of the room naked. Don't do that. And it wouldn't be focused on one person who's smiling. Look, as a speaker, and it's just my thought process. One, I don't envy people putting on events. I think that it's not an easy thing to put on an event, especially that's the best event on the planet. I say that hands down. I've said it to their faces. I've said it behind their backs, and I've been around events for 30 years. So should be a good compliment to the guys. I think every event is going in with a notion of we want to provide so much value for the room. So how do we do that? We get more speakers and we give them half an hour slots. All right. And then it's like this rush back to back to back to back. All right. And then here's what happens. If one speaker goes a bit longer, it's how do we leave the next person the speaker feeling, and then the day extends. Well, the more you extend the day, the less everyone in the world suffers from attention deficit disorder to some degree. All right. So, from that standpoint, I always think 45 minutes is the ultimate, but having that clock at the 30-minute mark, it's certainly not easy. That's why, in September, for example, I'm speaking for 5 hours of a day. Why? Because it's more teaching than an event. I would prefer if events did hybrid, where they did more teaching and they had less speakers. And maybe this is a lesson in life, and it's just Jamie Miller's thoughts. I'm not gospel, but if you look at Chick-fil-A, they're the most successful business out there for their field industry. They outsell everyone else combined. They're open less days, less options on the menu. And I think it's the same for every other industry, every event you go to and things of that nature. But Chris, I can tell you the clock affected me, especially considering I'm not a script guy. So I don't ever look at where am I at on what minute and what have you. It's just, did I teach a room one thing? And maybe you're like this. I always start the same. I always end the same. My lessons in the middle can always be different. It doesn't matter. All right. Is what I've discovered. The last two lessons, the lesson I teach before teaching the word believe as the most powerful word is the word yet. That word yet is a savior for me, because I can just turn around. Hey, has anyone learned something from me yet that they didn't know before I came up here? All right. And then the idea is a lot of the people in the room say yes. It doesn't matter if I'm at 25 minutes and I can throw out that, I can teach as a lesson and I can use it consciously at the room. Chris, you could literally go, has any of you learned something from me yet that you didn't know? Terrific. Now it makes your ending so much more seamless if you follow along, whether you're at, and it's just kind of like your get out clause. Do you know what I mean? Like wherever you're at in your talk. And the other thing I'm going to throw out for your audience that they might not think about, and you're like this, because you see my slide where I do James Bond and Captain America. Mm-hmm. Okay, here's what I'm doing. The most important question. I say, guys, I haven't turned in Captain America just yet. Can we all agree it's impossible for me to teach you everything in half an hour? All right. The second the room goes yes, here's what happens. They go in the head, there has to be more. All right. Which there is, But here's
Yeah.
for a speaker who's watching this. If you don't have your own version of that kind of slide, or you don't ask a room, can we agree it's impossible to teach everything in the time frame I've got? If you don't do that, here's what will happen for you. You will get a bunch of people approaching you afterwards saying, thank you so much. Your talk was great. I'm going to go and take what you taught me and apply it. Why? Because you didn't leave them knowing that there's more. In fact, you gave them the impression that you taught everything. All right. So you have to have something in there. And that's that's in every meeting you have with someone. You've got to leave the person feeling like there's more legitimately. You can't teach everything that you know in half an hour, Chris. So you have to be like, can we understand there's more? Yes. But you don't have to tell them there is more. You're just doing the question somewhere near the beginning.
And you're leaving it open-ended for them for more communication.
Well, I've got hours upon hours of coaching, but the point is if you don't ask that, they think, thanks, you just taught me everything.
Give me everything he could possibly teach me on to the next one.
Yeah, one of the industries that struggles the most with that are financial advisors. They teach them so much logic and share so much in logic. Oh, I'm going to go and apply and do my own self-directed IRA based on what you taught me. And they're in their heads like, I only taught you this. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't let them know that
there's so much more.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm going to, that'll definitely go into my next talk for sure. I'm definitely going to implement that, and I'll give you credit for it.
That means in abundance, Chris. And if anyone out there aspiring, there's a simple lesson. I haven't got it written anywhere. My only mission in life, leave someone feeling better off than they found me in how they communicate or think around something in communication, and then let the universe do the rest. If I'm having you say it, Chris, then people are listening into you like, wow, okay, Chris just learned something there that he can implement.
Well, the thing that popped into my mind is because a lot of people that listen to this are originators, and they go do lunch and learns, and they go do whatever real estate offices. What if they put that line embedded that line into the next time they did a lunch and learn, or the next time they go to a real estate office? It gives the call to action at the end to schedule the one-on-one even more credibility.
Well, if they're really listening in and they listen to one of the first lessons, they need to share something subtle like this. Hey, whenever I get invited to these lunch and learns, afterwards, I always get people approaching me being like, hey, how's it work? Like working with you kind of thing. And now that you've thrown it out there, here's what happened. People will come up to more afterwards. Hey, you mentioned people come up to you. Yeah, no, I would love to know how more it works. It's the psychology. I call it the group psychology play. All right. From that standpoint, I could be cheeky and say subtly, I've said on here, I get invited to speak in other places. There might be someone who's listening and be like, hey, Chris, how do I get in touch with Jamie to have him speak somewhere? Like as long as people are doing things with ethics, integrity, good morals, Chris, I don't believe any of us should ever have to apologize about how we travel from vacations or put food on our kids' tables and things of that nature. Thank you for the compliment that you're going to do stuff. Hopefully the originators, when they go and give a presentation, they say, hey, look, there's only so much I can achieve in 10 minutes, right? Right. Okay.
Well, I can tell you, I will literally take a couple things from today's call and teach them to the originators I coach. And I'll say, hey, I learned this on my podcast. First, most of my people listen to it, but regardless, I learned this today and I'm going to share this with you. So anytime I'm on, I read, cause I'm a big reader. I read all the time. Right. So like the book I'm reading right now, it's called, where's it at? Big Trust, great book. So it talks about self-doubt, but so I use the acronym CAT, change, apply, teach. Anytime I do a podcast or I listen to a podcast or I read or whatever, and it's always like, what can I change for Chris? What could I apply or what could I teach? And I'm like you, like I get better every time I teach. So I try to teach as much as I possibly can because that makes me a better leader, makes me a better husband, better father, like just a better Chris.
On that note, I think it's important that people understand teaching 5-minute lesson things, like teach the word yet to someone. It might take you 5 minutes to teach it. You don't have to teach someone for a full hour. Mm-hmm. Here's the deal. The first time you teach it, you're going to be terrible at teaching it. But here's what will happen. As you're teaching it, you'll see the look of complexity come on someone's face. So the next time you teach, you'll make it more clearer. And then the next time you teach, and then what happens is the brain will just very subconsciously just pick up it and just smoothly do it. I have a lot of old colleagues, former colleagues, like, dude, how do you even like remember? I've forgotten everything. I said, I teach it. All right. And it's so that I'm glad, Chris, that there's no secret to success. It's a lot more simple. Your audience, right? You teach it. They need to go. There's so much abundance of people to teach it to. And if your audience can grasp this, then it's kind of, I actually find myself saying a lot that I'm selfish, and I own up to being selfish from this capacity. I put my own oxygen mask on first. I go to the gym, so mentally I'm good for the day for people out there that need me. When I teach, I understand I'm teaching someone else. They like it, but I'm teaching them for me more than I am for them. So hopefully that, even though I said I'm selfish, hopefully people can, I'm sharing with you guys, be selfish, go and teach other people, because they will love, and you'll get some people who look at you cynical. Like, why is this person being so nice to me? I wasn't hugged as a kid growing up. You're not teaching them for them. You're teaching them for you. And then here's what will happen. The more people you teach, the universe will send other people into your life.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's I couldn't agree with you more, Jamie. I tell you, I wish I still lived in Orlando, because I did live in Orlando for a long time. Moved to Indiana recently. You and I would hang out.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I lived in Lake Mary for 10 years and then moved back to Indiana last summer. But I got to tell you, one of the things that I'll share with you that and as people are on here saying, okay, thinking, well, I want to speak. Like, how do I speak? Or I want to teach, but does it matter how many people I teach? Well, I have a friend of mine and a mentor, a guy named John Gordon. And John's written a ton of books, wrote The Energy Boss and tons of other best-selling books. When I first started my speaking journey, I said, John, how do I speak more? He said, you speak more. I said, okay, that you got to go deeper. He goes, Chris, you speak in any room that'll have you, whether it's 1 person, 5 person, or 5,000. That's how you get there.
I can tell you I love John. I can tell you I love John already. Like,
yeah. So if you want to teach more, teach more. Teach 1 person, 2 people, whatever it is, and that will get you better, right? It'll make you better. The reps, we know that as salespeople, more reps, the better we get. But it also in the teaching space of things. And my brain works so much better when I'm teaching someone, or when I'm learning something with the thought process of wanting to teach it later. Like that's the way my brain absorbs it.
I'm going to give the advice on here that I give to every aspiring speaker. Jamie, how'd you get on all these stages? And I'm going to teach a lesson, and hopefully people pick up on these words, because it's factual. I don't go like that. So hopefully your audience heard. I don't go like, so you don't go like this. All right.
Yep.
If you want to speak, every room, every organizer has a budget, and it's not an infinite budget. They have a finite budget. So I get on a lot of stages. When they go, Jamie, what's your fee? I'm like, you're going to love me. All right. I don't have one. I'm like, if it's traveling, take care of flights, accommodation, which they're all happy to do. But beyond the speaker fee, it's the opportunity to get in front of a room of people, whether it's 1, 5, 100. We don't get to control how many people show up to an event, but your audience who are aspiring to speak, don't go like this. You'll get more opportunities. And here's what happens. As I shared it on here, as a result of speaking at MortgageCon, I've got tons more that I know are going to end up coming from it. I had a talk just before this, so it was virtual. I've got one that's coming up in Boston as a result of I've got a call at 1:30 today in half an hour with a guy in Boston. I've got don't make your life, I think I shared this. The only word in sales you can't be is desperate. The problem is in the world is you and I will tell the world be abundance, but if they've got scarcity in their mindset because they're worried about how to pay a bill next week, it's not that I get it. I'm just saying that's how you're going to leave someone feeling. And if you can, and if you really want to be true abundance, just like your friend John, you want to speak more, speak more. You want to teach more, teach more. You want to be abundant, but you can't leave room for scarcity. You know, and bring value to other humans. So was that a good,
yeah, no, it was great. It's great. It's great. So let's wrap this up. So a couple things. You have an event coming up.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your event in September.
So with all these shiny objects of AI and all this stuff, I'm doing I'm like the rebellion against AI. There won't even be a mention of it, Chris. I've created something I've never thought I'd do is putting on an event. I'm calling it Human Con. It's in Orlando. It's predominantly for loan officers and realtors to teach them how to have human interactions. We both saw Luke Shinkala on stage go, how many of you use ChatGPT? Every hand goes up. Then he asked, how many of you get leads from ChatGPT or anything? Every hand went down. So I'm proof. And Ashley Bedford's of the world did 265 units last year. No paid advertising, just being human, being authentic self. I'm going to teach a whole room of people for hour on end on September the 18th in Orlando, how to be the ultimate human, how to ask the best questions, how to break down what are they saying in an email, what are they sending in a text, what are they saying when they're networking, if they're going to give a presentation at an office, how do they start, how should they finish to get more business for themselves. And I'm doing basically the deep dive into that. So if I could be cheeky and ask a question, did you guys learn stuff from me on Chris's podcast today? And if you're saying yes, imagine 5 hours of it in front of me in a room. And I'm very grateful that it's going really well. So I'm gonna I'm keeping on.
Well, we love that. We'll have everything, all the links and everything for people to do that in our show notes. Like it'll be there, guys. So if you're listening to this and you want to know more about that, look at the show notes. We'll have it there for Jamie.
If I may share one aspect of it, if they're partnered with UWM in any way, shape, or form, like they're with a brokerage that uses UWM, they're definitely going to either want to go straight to the partner perks page with UWM. I'm being upfront with them. If they're not partnered with UWM and still want my help, if you share with me, Chris was the one who introduced me to you. All right. That's all you have to, then we'll know they listened to this point or you shared it. I will still honor them they'll feel like a gift. And then I get to be a great reflection on Chris where they're like, dude, Chris, thank you so much. I wouldn't have known about Jamie had it not been for you. And so everyone can be happy. All right. So
well, I love that, Jamie. I know it's going to be a big event. If someone wants to contact you about other things, speaking or coaching or anything else, what's the best way for them to connect?
Look, I feel like I'm gonna I'm going against what I preach here necessarily, Chris. It never knows, but this is like I'm going to just give my cell phone number and then they can text me because I'm going to associate I'll give you the time of day, Chris. I'll give anyone the time of day. So my cell is 407-620-7862. All right. If they can, and the warmest form of correspondence, they text me. And then I'm practicing what I preach and teaching people. I've sold the warmest, if I was selling anything, I sold the warmest form of correspondence that someone can reach out to me to get my guidance or help. So.
And I want everybody to reach, if you find value there, reach out to Jamie. And look, and we talked about this very briefly in the beginning, but I know that Jamie and I believe in the same thing. And this is a rarity in what him and I do for a living is the abundance mindset. Like very rarely will someone who's a coach and speaker have another coach and speaker on their call and promote them. That doesn't happen. But I'm here to help Jamie because I know that Jamie can help you. He can help you change the way you think. He can help you grow your business. There's proof of it. I know a lot of people that have used him, and I can get you confirmation of that for some key individuals in different markets. And I know Matt Ishbia very well. I've known Matt for about 10 years now. If Matt was okay with putting him as part of the partner perks inside of his baby, UWM, which I know he owns his sons and it's his baby too, but the UWM is more of his baby, then there's definitely value in there. It can definitely help you grow your business through communication.
Wonderful. Chris, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for being an abundance person.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the One Hand at a Time podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and were able to take away something that will help you elevate your career, business, or just your personal life in general. If by any chance you would like to take your journey even further than just this podcast, then please consider going over to chriswelton.live and potentially scheduling a time to work with Chris to develop the steps to help you get to the next level. If you also are interested in learning even more about Chris Welton, then please visit his Instagram or YouTube channel, One Hand at a Time. There are weekly uploads giving you a true glimpse at his life and all of the motivation and knowledge that he has to offer. Again, thank you for listening, and we hope to have you back on the next episode.